Hi, everybody. Danny J here for Capes Not Included right here on the DJB Productions Network. Make sure you're hitting that notification bell down below. Make sure you're leaving us some statements and some comments, and make sure you're subscribing. Subscribe. Share the channel. As always, we always appreciate the support. Let's tell you what we got going on here first before we get into the show. Let's talk to LeGrand Jackson.
What's up?
We got LeGrand. We got Matt Sunner.
Yo!
Joining us finally for the first time, the lovely Lily Hernandez.
What up? What up?
She's so excited. And we got Bobby T, Bob Taylor.
Hi.
What's going on, guys? What's going on? So today we got a nice, fun show for everybody. We're going to be talking about Masters of the Universe. Now, this is a craze. It's not just a show. It's not just an action figure line. This was a craze that happened in the early 1980s and was nothing but gigantic from its inception all the way through to today in now 2020. And I'm telling you guys, we're going to have a fun show today. We got so much to talk about. Okay. And believe it or not, it does not start with the animated features. It starts with the toy line. It starts with the Sears catalog of all things. And
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
All right, fine. I'm wrong. Whatever, guys.
It actually started with Wonder Bread.
Did it really?
The very first figure came out before the cartoon was submitted as a mail away for Wonder Bread. He's one of the most rarest He-Man figures to get. He's called Savage He-Man. He actually had brown hair.
Mm-hmm.
He wore a black chest piece, and he had brown boots and brown trunks. But you could only get him for mailing away for Wonder Bread. That was actually the very first He-Man figure before the whole line hit the Sears catalog. It was like
wasn't that the demo that he was like the prototype for the figure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Actually, the prototypes for the figures were a lot different than these were. Before we get into any of this,
yes,
I'm kind of like a He-Man aficionado. There's a book out there that if any of you haven't read, it's called Mastering the Universe. It's a book about the guy who invented the line for He-Man. Believe it or not, originally, before he invented He-Man, George Lucas came to him and offered him the licensing to produce Kenner Star Wars figures. And he passed on it. He was like, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Let somebody else do it. And then George Lucas gave it to Kenner, and it blew up. And this guy almost lost his whole career over the one bad decision. And then he made the He-Man toy line, and that saved his whole life. So the book is called Mastering the Universe. It's actually a really cool book, a really good read.
I can tell you my first introduction into He-Man was the Sears catalog, Christmas of 1980 something.
I love the Wish book.
And and it was a full page ad for He-Man. And when I tell you love at first sight was the only way to describe it, because at that time we had Conan the Barbarian, we had Thundar the Barbarian in our animated features, etc. And that Barbarian, you had a dominance of space toys and space characters and space movies out at that time, but a Barbarian thing being like almost the complete opposite was like something to say, all right, this is a cool alternative to being in space or whatever. And the way they actually produced the promos, in that catalog with a savage land looking scenario, Castle Grayskull, they didn't really show any of the vehicles. They only showed the figures. And the figures were all buff, and they were like barbarian figures. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Made sure I folded the page corner down. Parents bought me all that stuff for Christmas, and the love started from there. And then obviously we move on to animated shorts, which we later find out later in life that this was to help sell the toy line, etc., which most cartoons do. And
well, a lot of lines it was the reverse.
Right. Exactly. But with this one, they wanted an accompanying animated thing to really get the name out there for the He-Man line, because and I think not only did it save his career, but I think they were really banking on this being their savior as well.
Well, I don't know if anybody remembers, but before there was He-Man with Filmation,
there was a little show that they had called Black Star, which was the progenitor to He-Man.
Yeah, I
See?
remember Black Star.
Now, for
Yep.
me, Black Star was a lot like Buck Rogers. In
Mm-hmm.
a sense, he was an astronaut, went to another planet, then he loses his clothing and gets a loincloth, whatever, blah blah blah. I had those figures as well. They were not as good as He-Man.
No, not at all.
Nah, they really weren't. But I had the
You know what,
Overlord,
though?
and Black
Even
Star.
though those figures may not have been as good as He-Man, they're better than He-Man now. Because of the way they were made, those figures stood the test of 40 years. The original He-Man figures, I buy and sell toys all day long, and it's so hard to find ones where the leg bands aren't snapped. But the Black Star figures and Brave Star, which was kind of like the same thing, those figures stood the test of time. I can still find those figures intact.
It's true. He-Man figures have groin cancer out the wazoo because they really did. It just bust apart. They dry rot. It's the truth. And the other thing was too, once, for me at least, because being big wrestling fans as kids and stuff like that, once you were able to take the straps off and then you then had a wrestling figure on top of everything else that was just as big as the Remco AWA figures back in the day. So you had another alternative figure, that you could play with them and all. So, I mean, I got a lot of use out of my He-Man figures. I ain't going to lie. And I use them not only in Masters of Universe, but in creative play. Took like one of my favorite figures, which is not a real popular figure, was Rio. What was it? Rio Star? Is that his name?
Rio Blast.
Rio Blast. Thank you. Which was the marshal who had all the guns that popped out of him and stuff like that. And I used to do like these adventures of Rio, because remember we had what was the LeGrand? What was the Native American? Was it Brave Star?
Yes.
Yeah, Brave Star came out around that time, and I said, well, I have a better marshal than him, and I had Rio Blast, because this guy had more guns, you know what I mean? And I used to do like where he was a bounty hunter. So like I was able to use their figures in other fashions, which was kind of really cool too. Creative play doesn't happen anymore, but back then the world was endless,
We had this conversation before. Why doesn't creative play happen anymore?
Too
Social
many damn
media.
electronics.
You're right.
Because they no longer
Social
make
media and
playsets.
video games.
Yes.
Because they
True.
no longer make playsets.
Yes, that's true. They really don't. They don't make play sets. I mean, you got to remember, in our generation, we all had the ultimate play set was Flag, the USS Flag. That was
Yeah,
the ultimate.
G.I. Joe.
The two main playsets are right there next to LeGrand. Show those, LeGrand.
Yeah, let me
Show
bring LeGrand up here.
Castle Grayskull was the tits back in the day.
Yes.
Believe it or not, if I put batteries in it, Snake Mountain actually still works.
Nice.
Oh,
That's
okay.
rad.
Yeah.
Microphone.
Can you open up Snake Mountain? Because I never had Snake Mountain.
So I can put it up as a thing.
Right. Oh, nice. But it's not like it, oh, you took the floors out and stuff. Yeah, because it's not as roomy as Castle Grayskull. It's not as roomy as Castle Grayskull.
Of course not.
It's just not a great condo in comparison. Now,
He-Man had the mansion, Skeletor had the condo.
now, obviously, with this great toy line, and the toy line blew up, and they made figure after figure after figure, and not to the craze of what Star Wars did with their figure line, but you had a new figure all the time with Masters of the Universe, and from Fisto to Jitsu to Mechanic to Spikor. I mean, I had all these figures. I remember seeing them all, and then that was before you even had to double up on your main characters, like where you had Thunder Punch He-Man and Battle Ravage He-Man and stuff like that, and the same thing with Skeletor and whatever. But now they see that the market is so huge for these toys, and the cartoon is such a huge hit that they said, well, we have a large female market watching this show. and it's just waiting to buy toys. Hence comes Shira, his twin
Yeah, they
sister.
took forever
They
to put
did.
Shira out there. Because like I was telling y'all before, I stole my brother's Castle Grayskull, and like I stole his GI Joes too, because I didn't want to play with Barbie. But
Right.
he beat the crap out of me for taking his Castle Grayskull. But he had all the cool toys. I didn't want to play with Barbie,
Is
and
it
I didn't
true
want to play
though?
dress up.
Right. Now, is it
I
true
wanted to
that
blow shit up. That's that was
is it true that girls really didn't have, other than make believe you're married and have a baby, you didn't really have toys that other outside of let's make sure you're barefoot in the kitchen.
Yes, and
You
that
know what I
was
mean?
distressing and sad.
Yeah, it
And
really was.
and you know, I was kind of tomboyish when I
Yeah.
was little just because I had an older brother, and so I was really rough and tumble. So I played with his GI Joes and I played with his He-Man and I played with like all his Thundercat stuff, and we used to act out WWF stuff. Like I was always the Ultimate Warrior, and I used to love to run around and mess with him, and you know, like my dad would get pissed off because we'd hurt each other. And then I'd cry and say he did something really bad to me. And I'd be like, Daddy, help me. When I was fine, I was just being a little shit. But yeah, I did not like that. I never wanted to play with Barbies.
Right.
I remember getting Barbies when I was younger for my birthday and being like, thank you, you know, because I have to be nice because my
Yeah.
parents raised me right. And then afterwards asking my cousin, do you want my Barbies? Because I never wanted to play with them.
Now, did that
Well,
change your mind when She-Ra came out?
Well, I did like Shira, and I've told Danny before. I know that there are pictures. I've been trying to find them. I used to dress up like Evelyn all the time, and I was Evelyn for Halloween. I don't even know how many times, because I never wanted to be the good guy.
Yeah.
Even when like I would play with my friends and we'd do like princesses, I always wanted to be Maleficent.
Yes.
And so, you know, that was always my thing too. But I'm gonna find those pictures of me dressed up like Evelyn. I know my mom has them.
Well, you know,
I loved,
Tila was stuck up.
and Tila was a badass, and I loved her. But I still, you know, like I wanted to be the big strong guy. But I will say, when Battle Cat came out, that was my new thing.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, well, Shira's gonna ride Battle Cat, and Shira's gonna wreck shop on Battle Cat, and you know, so that was, I would share my brother's He-Man with him at that point. But
And
I did appreciate Shira.
you know what's funny though is that like Battle Cat, which was a figurine, wasn't even actually a posable figure or anything like that, was like
Hmm.
the shit to get. And then when Panther
Yeah.
came out, which was just him with it, and that's when I started noticing too, like when companies would get cheap, because I had, you know, I obviously had the original set, you know, which was Zodak, you know, He-Man, Skeletor, Evelyn, etc., Man at
Man at
Arms,
Arms,
Tila.
Tila.
But then later on when they made Moss Man, and Moss Man was just Beast Man covered in AstroTurf.
The flop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all he was. You know what I mean? I was like, you know, like how cheap, you know. But then I had Buzz Off, and the cool thing about Buzz Off, right? If you go back years ago, and it all plays together because I think He-Man opened this up to a lot of different things. Do you remember the show Sectars?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Sectars was the planet Symbion, and something happens, and they all become insect people. Blah blah blah. And I had those, and they were about the same size as He-Man, not as muscular, but they were about as tall. So I said, pretend that Buzz Off was just a more de-evolutionized version of those people. You know, and I would, once again, interactive play. I didn't have to be masters of the universe to use these figures in such a way to have fun, and that was the cool thing about it. And that helped me as a writer later on in life because I needed to be visual to visually see something happen, and for me to say, I don't like the way that is, let me try it this way, let me try it that way. Because you know, sometimes you get something caught in your head and you're like, all right, yeah, I'm writing it, and you write something, you're like, you know what, now that I see it, you know, on paper, it sucks, you know what I mean? So let me try and act it out and see. And I used to use figures a lot in that, in that scenario. In wrestling, a lot of times when I used to do, like, if I was doing like writing storylines or something like that, I had my figures there and I was acting it out just to see how it would look, you know. So for me, I had to be visual in that sense. So I mean, the toy lines were like crucial in my life. Could I have done without the cartoon? Sure, I had more than enough imagination for anything back then. But that cartoon helped a lot. Now, granted, the cartoon, which was great, and I'll never say it's not great, really, really dumbed down He-Man in a sense, in the whole sense of like the grandeur of this barbarian world, so fantastic with wizardry and stuff like that. And the science seemed to overlap the wizardry, where I thought it should be the other way around. But that's what they had to do to sell toys, you know. But you move up to the remake, which Bob, you and I talked about this before. The remake back in 2002. What an amazing remake of He-Man.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. It was so good. It had me on the edge of my seat every friggin' week, and then they cut it short. They just cut it short. They didn't give you an ending to it. They left it right in the middle of the Snake Man saga. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, the thing is, too, anytime any show changes the title, that means it's getting ready to go out.
Yeah.
When you jump the shark because you got to change the title, that you're in your last season. They did it with Hulk. They did when they changed it to Hulk and She-Hulk. They did it to He-Man, where it was like now He-Man and the Snake Men, or Battle of the Snake Men, or something like that. I was like, okay, it's going. But it's such a great show and stuff like that. Now, going back to the toys, though, when they finally did get She-Ra out there, I don't think they did as great a job with the She-Ra figures as they did with He-Man.
Well, their best feature was they had real hair.
Yes.
The She-Ra figure. They didn't have that muscular look, because that wasn't acceptable back then.
No.
You didn't have all these big bodybuilder chicks back then like you do now. It'd be different if He-Man had been invented right now. First off, it probably wouldn't have went anywhere. It was invented in a time where that was needed. You know what I'm saying? And it was the first time a line like that had ever been created. Originally you had the 12-inch GI Joes. Then they scaled everything down to 3 3/4 inch. This was the first time a toy line was ever done in a 5-inch scale.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, and as far as that, they brought. I don't want to sound, fucked up or anything like that, but they brought the She-Ra figures out to buy into the female audience. Yeah. But they did it in such a way so that the females still looked feminine enough that the male figures still looked powerful.
Right. Yes, and that's exactly why I didn't want to play with She-Ra. I still wanted to play with He-Man.
Right. And the only guy you had on that line was Bo, and he was right out of the Blue Oyster Bar. That guy was,
also, that's where the Horde came in. A lot of the Horde figures didn't come out until She-Ra.
Right. And in the folklore, the Horde is like before Skeletor, which a lot of people don't realize. If you go back, the Horde is really the original bad guys of the Masters of the Universe saga. Going back to King, what was it? King Grayskull. Yeah. And going with that, and what a great story. They actually did touch that storyline in the 2002 animation show.
Yeah, Hordak was the one who helped transform Skeletor.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Keldor, yeah.
At the time.
Yes. And the thing was to say, well, why does he say power of Grayskull? And why? And everybody up until that point thought he was talking about the castle, but he's actually talking about Lord Grayskull, because he's supposedly in the sword. His essence, his power, is in the sword. So therefore, they're drawing the power of King Grayskull or Lord Grayskull, not the castle. The castle was a dump. It was like in the projects and shit. You know what I mean? And really, it was kind of unique for me too as a kid to say, well, your bad guy Skeletor, but the good guy Castle is Grayskull. So no wonder he's pissed. He got kicked out of his place. You know what I mean? I thought,
if you really want to look at it, you could almost look at it as like it's two different evil warlords, going against each other, because you figured the bad guys were usually in the skull type castles. So it's like, was He-Man really the good guy or the not quite as bad guy?
He was the guy that came in and bought the project. He bought the project and he got rid of everybody that was paying low rent. And
he was gentrifying.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yes, pretty much. That's what I think it was. I think it was like what they do now in West Philly. right now. It's like they go through, they buy up blocks, and then they rent to high people as much as they can. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but now
Hashtag
they did,
gentrification.
yeah, that's all. Now the funny thing was too, when you think about it, they tie in Earth, so you have this little piece of I can understand what's going on by having the Queen be an astronaut from Earth. And,
Right.
and you barely saw her, but they wanted to do that today. And the cool thing about back then versus now, we did not need age related characters to relate with the show.
Right.
I was more than happy to watch adults as a kid.
There were no children on that show.
No, and if they were getting in trouble, and they
Right.
had that really goofy filmation voice.
Yeah.
You know what? That one voice that like was every asshole kid on He-Man was always that one voice, and it was like that nasally wild voice like that. And it's like, oh my god, I said that's the kid that's going to cause a problem in this whole episode. You can always pick it out because that was the one. It was always that one. But like the later on in life, the cartoons, for whatever reason, they felt this need. I don't know if it was by research or by assumption, that they felt that we need to make sure that the key audience, be it 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, whatever, they need another 10 or 8-year-old in here so they can relate to it. We didn't need that personally. I don't think I did. We're all around the same age. I personally didn't need to have a kid on a show.
No.
I don't know. Lil, you were completely out there. Did you need any kind of? No, that's what I'm saying.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? It's like,
The weird stuff. I mean, like seriously, my brother's GI Joes were running ops on Castle Grayskull. Like there were times when he would come into my room and he's like, "How do you have all my crap in your room? And why are you mixing GI Joes with He-Man?" And like he didn't understand me, which was totally fine. Most people don't. But like I said, GI Joe was infiltrating Castle Grayskull, so no, I definitely didn't need a kid to help me out.
No, exactly. And
it's like that. It's like that joke where the little girl says, "I want Barbie and GI Joe," and the parents say that Barbie comes with Ken, and she says, "No, she comes with GI Joe. She fakes it with Ken."
I mean, facts. If we're talking about reality,
because really, Ken reminds me of Ice Pirates. Remember when they catch those guys and they? Do you ever see Ice? Yes, he's laughing. She knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
The big chopping machine.
Slave.
Yeah, nobody.
Play along, and it'll happen for real.
Exactly. And that's the truth. I mean, it's the total truth. You know what I mean? But like the cool thing about that, and like in mixing of toys, like remember Mantech? You guys remember Mantech?
Vaguely.
Mantech there was good guys and bad guys. They all came apart. And the torsos had holes in the neck, the arms, the legs, and the crotch. And you could reposition the body parts in multiple ways, and you could add stuff onto them, much like you did with. They came out right around the same time as Centurions. So it was kind of like that, but Centurions was a much better looking product. But the Mantech figures, you were able to like make them into different robots and add different arms and all kinds of goofy stuff like that. And I used to have my Mantech be almost like the Terminator. Like he's this thing sent there and everybody has to fight the Mantech guy and stuff like that. So once again, having these toys, which were right around the same size, because Bob, you're right, in the sense of having a 5 to 5.5 inch figure, it opened up a lot in the sense of, what can I play with? I can't, like she's having GI Joe at 3.5 inches jump up on He-Man, which was like Kevin Hart jumping up on Shaquille O'Neal in a sense, with the figures and the but these figures all matching the same and being able to work together. I was like, this is kind of cool because it opened up the world in my mind, at least, of Eternia, and there's an invading from another planet. They're coming down to Eternia and they're fighting, blah blah blah. I mean, I even did a thing where, oh my God, I'm playing with my diabetes while I'm doing this show. There was even a thing where I had Spikor and He-Man for literally for 7 days. I did this for an entire week because I was very method when I played with my toys. That if I said I'm going to do something, I didn't just do it for a half hour and then stop. If I said it's for 7 days, it's going to be for 7 days. Where they had a almost like a strongman competition that was like a battle to the death, and it lasted over 7 days. Where Spikor and He-Man are fighting it out. And like if He-Man, given the size of their muscles, hit you, you flew about 3 miles that way and stuff like that. And I did all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And
See, and all I did was blow my toys up.
see, because you're an asshole.
That's what I did too.
I tied M80s to them. I tied them to kites. I tied parachutes to them, threw them out the third-story window. I used to bury them in the park, feed them to the dog, all sorts of stuff.
I used to do that stuff to my what was that, Miglo figures?
Migo.
Yeah.
Migo, yeah.
I used to do them. I used to throw them right from the third-story window of my house. I used because they like I had Robin with a cape, and I used to love watching the cape flatter as he like was diving towards the ground. I used to throw those guys out like no more. But my He-Man guys, especially like now, picture this though. We're a kid. Remember back in the day, you had that plastic turtle pool, right? That had the slide came from the head. Well, I used to put Castle Grayskull in the water, and then I would get like goggles, and I would go underneath the water with He-Man and watch him swimming underwater and stuff like that. I mean, I was like crazy. Like when I had friends come over, I say, listen, the only way this looks right is if you make He-Man like go like this when he's swimming because he looks like he's swimming. Don't just kind of move him around like he's a fish. You know, I mean, I used to have rules when you came over to play because I'm like, I want this shit to look right when you're playing with me. You know, what I mean? That type of thing.
Right.
So needless to say, I played a lot by myself when I was a kid because nobody wanted to deal with that. Nobody wanted to deal with that shit at all. But I would be out there for hours.
It's my game. It's my rules.
It really was. It really was. And like I used to have them in the tree. I used to have like the tree thing. I even remember this was our tradition. My wife gets nuts when I talk about this, but like she grew up with real trees for Christmas. We always had a big, like you put it together, right? And the tree we had from like 1960 fucking something, whatever it was a pole, and you had 8 million things that had to stick in holes, right? Like this, right? So the big thing Christmas Eve was putting the tree together. That was like the big family thing, right? It was putting the tree together. And then we put all the lights out. And we had all the different colored lights and stuff like that. And I would take my He-Man guys and go like right up in the tree where all the thing, and I used to call it the Magnetic Mountains. And that was like this big special part of Eternia and stuff like that. I used to do all kinds of stuff with He-Man all over the house, like all over the house. He-Man was infiltrated in everything back then. And it was an incredible thing. Now, getting back into the animated shows, did the animated shows for any of you alter your perception of He-Man in any way?
No, because I was born in 1971. He-Man was my shit. That was my time.
Yeah.
All right, when it came out, and I was too young to know about whether or not the toy line came before the cartoon or the cartoon came before the toy line. Every
Right.
TV cartoon back then, from Saturday morning cartoon, had a positive message at the end. Now I know, and knowing is half the battle. Every cartoon was like that. So there was no really changing any kind of perception of who you were because all the cartoons had a positive message. That was one of the standard-bearers of having a cartoon on Saturday morning, was that it must end on a positive note, and nobody should die, and it must end on a positive note.
And that's because of
you have to
moms.
revisit what you learned over the course of the episode.
That's because of moms, you know. Moms are the ones that did that. Because up until then, we could kill anybody we wanted by the end of the episode. It didn't matter. And then they said, you know what? You're having all this gratuitous violence and you're selling toys. If you're going to be selling toys to kids, then they better be getting a positive message out of it. And that's why it became a law that if they were going to make a cartoon, which was primarily a 30-minute cartoon or a 30-minute commercial, I should say, for your toy line, at the end, there better be some kind of learning behind it. Otherwise, you're just polluting our children's minds. And that's what they came up with. And so therefore, every cartoon that was based on the toy line had to do that. And like you Silverhawks, where you had Copper Kid learning from Bluegrass about space, and the Centurions talking about the Earth and whatever. Everybody had to do something. He-Man And I used to think, like, what a pompous son of a bitch this guy is talking to me about this and that. And everything. You know, like, you know what, dude? You're in the projects, dude. You're like the one white dude in the projects. Cut it out, dude. Cut. It's a bad neighborhood. You're the only guy that's like doing well around here because you're floating your money around. You know what I mean? As Prince Adam, what a jerk off he was, right or wrong? Like, granted, you know, you get the whole Clark Kent Superman thing out of it. But like, I was like, dude, you really have to do it that much? Like, you're just as big as He-Man, you know. Which I'm glad. I'm glad in the new one they didn't do that. That Prince Adam was small until he did the sword thing. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know. It's just really ridiculous, you know. But like, you move on, and then you finally get to this movie with Dolph Lundgren, who was huge at the time because he beat up Rocky. Okay. And you know, Ivan Drago was like going to be the next big thing, you know, in movies. And the movie, what a horrible fucking movie that was. Not for anything, you know what I mean? I mean, top to bottom, I couldn't stand it.
It was horrible because they tried to do they did an X-Men.
Yeah,
you know, the first X-Men movie, they changed everything about every character. They left all the great characters out. They brought in Tila, Man-at-Arms, and Gwildor, some little fucking troll dude who was like, I guess was supposed to be like Orko's stand-in.
Yes.
Because they didn't have anything.
Well, remember that was Canon Films. So money was short, which is why mostly it was done on Earth because they couldn't afford the set.
Courtney Cox paid more than Dolph Lundgren, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
Who did?
Courtney Cox.
I believe it. She was fresh off of Bruce Springsteen.
Yep.
That's why.
the best part about the movie was Skeletor.
Yeah. He honestly was. He was the best actor.
Yeah. You have Frank Langella playing Skeletor. He actually made Skeletor seem like he was competent enough to maybe win.
To do what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention that the makeup effects they did, you know, just the makeup for Skeletor was good. Because that was my big thing.
Too, I got to say, the bad guys looked awesome, though. Beastman looked awesome. Evil Lynn looked good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they added a couple people like Blade and shit that you never heard of.
They were added toys. That's why.
Yeah. Which actually, believe it or not, that Blade figure is worth a hell of a lot of money right now because
it wasn't that many in production. Right. That's right. What was the out of the movie? I think the one that was sold or seen the most was there was another guy next to Blade. It was like a lizard guy or something. Like I think he was seen
like a cobra.
Oh
like
yeah, he got killed.
Yeah, he got killed too. And
Skeletor wasted him.
Yeah, so you can see his figure all the time. You know what I mean? Now keep in mind too. I'm a little older when that movie comes out, but you know I'm seeing Frank Langella right out of and God Created Women. So I got a completely different view of Frank Langella going into He-Man than what it was before. Because that was soft porn going into He-Man at this point. You know what I mean? But I was like, all right, let's see what he could do in this. And I'm like, wow, was he good? Now, Dolph Lundgren had to reshoot lines over and over again because of his English was so poor. That, like, you know, he was very limited in Rocky. People don't realize how limited he was in Rocky because of his accent. You know,
yeah, but well, again, but that still worked because then you had, you know, his character was Russian, English was his second language, so you could get away with it.
And he's Swiss, and he's a Swiss. He's not even Russian. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
either way, the character, it's English is second language, so you can keep him with having short, simple lines that sounds like, you know, me Tarzan, you Jane, you know.
But then they go to Earth, which anytime anything goes to Earth, I'm like, oh, this is gonna suck. Because you're taking all the magic right out of it. You know what I mean? You're right in saying Gwildor was the Orko replacement because they couldn't afford the effects to make Orko. Because that was obviously everybody was the intention of being there, and it wasn't happening. I thought the guy that played Man-at-Arms was a great casting. I really did. I thought the girl that played Tila was pretty good. She was actually pretty good. Meg Foster was probably the only person you could get to be Evelyn. Because her eyes alone, which were her eyes, they weren't even like made up. That's her eyes. She looks like a fucking Malamute. You know, I mean,
I remember watching that movie and being like, oh my God, I wish I looked like her. Like I wanted to be Evelyn.
Yeah, Meg Foster had it down. had it down.
Yeah.
And then you have your other
she was pretty
characters,
rad.
and then you had Pickles was her last name. I can't remember her first
Christina
name.
Pickles.
Christina Pickles.
Yes.
She was
She was a
on.
sorceress.
Yeah, she was on
And
Save
she
House.
is
Save Houseware.
Yes, and
Yeah.
funny enough, what I thought was funny is Christina Pickles is the sorceress in the movie, and Courtney Cox is in the movie, and Christina Pickles is Courtney Cox's mom in Friends, and I always thought that was funny too.
Right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
now
You know, I can't remember. I haven't seen that movie in a while. Did they show Prince Adam in that movie at all?
no.
I didn't
Nope.
think so.
Started off with He-Man. He was in a more royal-looking garb, like he was in his outfit with a cape. They added a cape to him, you know.
Mhm.
And it's a shame because I think a Eternia-based movie with He-Man would have been phenomenal. The problem was it was canon. The best thing that ever came out of canon, legit, was Lone Wolf McQuade. That's the only movie that canon ever did that was perfect, you know, because they did Superman and everything else. They killed the Superman series. They killed He-Man. He-Man, they borrowed money from Superman 4 to pay for He-Man for Masters of the Universe, which is why Superman 4 sucked so bad because it had a lot of used footage and stuff like
I
that.
have to defend any movie with Christopher Reeves. Superman, okay? There will never, ever, ever be another Superman like Christopher Reeves.
No, never.
I
never.
agree.
Superman
I
and Gene
agree.
Hackman was in that back in
Mhm.
Superman 4.
Yes.
There was a lot of good stuff in Superman 4. Okay? The reason a lot of people didn't like 3 and 4, and I know we're not on He-Man anymore, but the reason everybody dug the original Superman 1 and 2 is because those were made as one movie at the same time and chopped in half.
Yes.
Mhm.
And 3 and 4 were done by two different directors,
Absolutely.
two different
Now,
productions.
the original 2 were Mario Puzo and I almost said Jeffrey Dahmer.
Just about.
Wow.
But like He-Man, and you go by today's standards, and you're like, you know, you see movies like Gladiator. I mean, that's 10, 12, 15 years old, that movie. But like you see movies like Gladiator, you see movies like I was watching very briefly that Hercules movie with The Rock. I got about 20 minutes into it and I got out. But like stuff like that, you could make yourself a really good He-Man movie with the right script, with the right thought process behind it. You know, the problem is that you get all these people that want to make an interpretation rather than just make the whole fucking thing the way it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And this is what we kind of get into. Even, you know, again, this is where it's gonna tie in here. But the big problem right now with Hollywood is you want to see all these remakes and reboots, but they do remakes and reboots of movies that were great in their own right.
Yes.
I'd rather see studios come along and take something like Masters of the Universe and say, you know what? It flopped because of either poor writing, you know, poor plot line, lack of a good budget, and say, come on, let's redo this with a decent budget, decent cast, decent effects, a good plot, a good story. Do that. Take something that was a good idea but poorly executed, and take it a good idea and do it good. I mean, there's lots of movies that I can think of that we'll address in other show on the network at some point or another that really, those are the ones you need to reboot. It flopped because it wasn't done right. Go back and redo it and do it right.
And that brings me back to our last podcast. All right, with the Mandalorian. The reason the Mandalorian is such a success is because it was created by a fan. If they brought a fan like Farva in and let him do a He-Man movie, we'd have a huge success on our hands. But they let Hollywood executives take shit over, and then they get and they hire real big names to play these characters who don't want to wear a mask because they don't want to cover their faces. And then that's why you get a shitty movie. So you need somebody who's a true fan of the movie, and you need an unknown to play the role.
Yes. And you know what, though, too? You make a good point, but here's the deal, though, too. There are movies out there that have proven that you don't need a huge budget to make a great movie.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Literally
definitely.
don't. And
Yeah.
one movie that comes to mind for me is like District 9. And one movie that comes to mind for me is like District 9. District 9 was, in my eyes, a great story that was told, a great movie, super low budget, as an example. That's just one example, but there's many movies out there. There's movies out there with huge budgets that were giant flops. And they were flops because they couldn't make the money back that they put into it. And that's the God honest truth. Like recently, I was doing research for shows. Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, right? It cost 185 million to make the movie. It made 387 million. So it was a success, but not enough to say, "Hey, we want to get a sequel," because we didn't really make that much money back. We didn't make that much profit off of this movie because of how huge the budget was. But there's movies out there that make a small budget, they make huge, huge, huge success out of it, and it's one of those things where I think it comes down to the proper writing, the proper storytelling. Like you're saying, have a fan, someone who knows the material. Don't just take it on because you want to do an adventure movie. I've done romantic comedies and now I want to do an adventure movie. That's not going to cut it. You need someone that knows the material and say, I'm really passionate about this. And I want to.
Yeah, it's got to be a labor of love.
It does.
And it'll be successful.
It really,
It has
really
to be
does.
somebody that when somebody at the studio says, well, we should do it this way, they're going to sit there and say, no, because the movie's going to flop if we do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're bankrolling a project because you want to make money. I'm going to take your money and make a film that's going to make you money because as a fan, I know what the fans want. And I know what's going to have the fans coming into the theater, telling the other fans to go to the theater. They're going to tell everybody, if you missed it in the theater, buy it on DVD. Don't worry about, streaming it. Don't worry. Just go and buy it, period, because you're going to love it. You don't have to try before you buy. Get it? It was fantastic.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's what you need. Because when you said the studio execs get involved, they're trying to play like, oh, let's do this. And it's like, no. Unless that studio exec is sitting there going, I love that show. Are we doing this?
Right.
Are we doing this? Are we adding this person? That's somebody who, again, loved it and knows it and says, I want to make sure if you're bankrolling this, I want to make sure that you have points A, B, C, and D that everybody want to see in the movie. And if you're not, I'm going to tell you to put it in.
Well, it's like.
Yes, because if you don't, there are nerds like us that are going to be like, oh, that's wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
and that's wrong.
You missed it.
And
You
why
missed
the
it.
hell did y'all do that? That doesn't even make any sense.
And the whole time, you know what I mean? And like going back to, for example, like the 2002 remake of He-Man, what an incredible storytelling this was. It got so deep into it. It got so deep in the mythology. Like I said, we get to go back and see Lord Grayskull, where this power came from, etc. And give us such a larger mythos of the Masters of the Universe. And it took it from a hokey toy line cartoon to like this epic saga. Now they're remaking He-Man on Netflix. Netflix is going to have, they did a great job with Voltron. They had 4 or 5 seasons of Voltron, did a great job with that. Once again, delve into the mythos a lot more, gave us more backstory, etc. They're going to do that with He-Man. Mark Hamill has been casted as Skeletor, which I think
That's going to be rad.
Which is going to be great.
That's going to be rad.
I think it's
That was the one thing I didn't like about the Skeletor in the movie with Dolph Lundgren was the voice. He didn't have that cackling laugh. You know what I'm saying?
Now he was more menacing. I mean, he really was.
That.
I mean, Franklin Jello was very menacing, as like when Matt said, like I believed he could do this. Like this wasn't like, ha ha, you got me again, and then runs out, you morons. I didn't have to hear all the insults and all that bullshit. Like he really seemed like, wow, this guy's like a badass dude. He's gonna do something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, Bob, before we went on, was like, are we going to talk about this other travesty? Yeah, we are. Let's talk about the New Adventures of He-Man for a second. Now, this was
trash.
It was
trash.
It
was hot trash.
Hot trash. It was hot off the.
Do any of you remember a show called Captain Power?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Captain Power is where the New Adventures of He-Man came from. That show was having a success. The toys were really cool, and Mattel thought they could capitalize on Captain Power and turn He-Man into Captain Power. and it just didn't work out.
It just didn't do it. No. And to give you an idea, if you guys, there are people that have never heard of or seen the New Adventures of He-Man. It was a direct sequel to the Masters, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It came out probably a couple years after the cancellation of the original series. And what happens is Prince Adam / He-Man gets called to another planet because they need He-Man's help on this planet for some reason. How they knew about him, I don't fucking know, right? So he goes over there and learn, and sure enough, Skeletor follows along with him, and they go over there, and they're on this other planet. Now here, because this is not Eternia, Adam's not coming down as a prince. He's coming down as like this street rat pauper who like needs to just like making good with people and do his thing or whatever. Skeletor comes down, sees he doesn't have any of his lackeys with him. Beastman didn't come with him. Trapjaw didn't come with him. Any of these people. So he sees these other people, which are known as the mutants, because mutant was a very, very popular term back in the 90s. And they are, for the lack of a better term, they could have been the bad guys on the Fantastic Stooges cartoon. Remember the Stooges when they were superheroes? And they had like different things. They were robotic Stooges. They could have been like their villains. They were the worst villains ever.
Oh, yeah, they were horrible.
They were horrible. They even went as far as making the main bad guy sound stupid. He was like, he talked like a complete dumbass, right? He talked like he was uneducated. So obviously what you see Skeletor now take on a different role where he's kind of like someone who is going to bounce back. So he manipulates these mutants and says, "Oh yeah, I'll follow you and I'll do all this stuff, blah blah blah." Meanwhile, I'm doing my own thing, type of thing. But I'm staying good with these other people because I don't have anybody with me. So it kind of made him like a survivor, in a sense. You know what I mean? He-Man gets his upgraded look. He looks like the Highlander. How about it, Matt? He's got a ponytail.
He had a 6-foot ponytail.
Ponytail, yep.
Yeah, he's got spandex pants on. He's no longer a barbarian. The sword doesn't even look the same. It's not even the same.
The sword is like Thundar's sun saber.
It looked like the sun saber, exactly. And he meets all these different people on there, and the toy line was not bad. Now this toy line was more of a 4.5-inch figure. This is now a more posable. They're larger than the Kenner Star Wars, but they were smaller than He-Man. They weren't in a sense where they were that rubber band posable. These were guys that were like regular jointed with knee joints and stuff like that. Pretty cool figures. I can honestly say I did like the figures themselves. I had the one guy was called Whiplash or something like that. He was a guy in a jetpack, and I used to play with him and do all kinds of different stuff. And when I had the He-Man character for a short period of time, I don't know what the hell happened to it. He was Duncan MacLeod, the Highlander. Because he had a ponytail and he had a sword. I'm like, all right, he's a Highlander now. That's what he's going to be. Because I could not do New Adventures of He-Man. They were crappy Adventures of He-Man is what it should have been called. Now
they put a trench coat on him.
Yeah, that's all I had to do.
And he had things He-Man didn't need. Like all his accessories were like weird shit. Like it reminds me of like the Superman toy line. Like, why did Superman have a car?
Yeah. And why did Superman's car have 2 fists in it? Like
right.
Yeah. The Supermobile was stupid. Now the not to talk about it, but the Superpowers collection Supermobile was much better.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a much better looking vehicle. Just saying.
Give me a minute and I'll whip. I actually have that.
Do you have it in front of you? Yeah, go grab it.
No, it's in my storage of 15 bins of toys from my childhood.
Well, that could be another future one. We could do a podcast about superpowers one time.
We will. We'll do it. The Superpowers collection actually, because I had almost, except for I think about 5 figures, I had the entire collection, and I was very proud of that.
You know why you didn't have those 5 figures?
They were all mail-in. That's why. And
most of them weren't available in the U.S.
Yes.
Yep.
I had the only mail-in character I got was Steppenwolf. I didn't get anybody else. Like Clark Kent was one in Sears. Clark Kent was a Sears exclusive from the wish list, from the wish book, and I didn't get it. And then there was some other ones that there was Cyborg. I didn't get Cyborg, any of them.
Nobody can get Cyborg. It's the most sought after superpowers figure ever.
Yeah.
Cyborg, Samurai, Plastic Man, Clark Kent. They were the hardest figures to get.
I have Plastic Man. I have Samurai. Yes, love them. I love them because I got toys every weekend when I went out.
I'm going to come rob your attic one day.
You gotta remember. I'm the youngest of 4, so I got what the fuck I wanted to get. When I went out, I would say, "Dad, look at these 2 figures." He goes, "Well, pick one." I said, "Well, I'd really like them both." Go ahead, just get them. That's the way my dad was. I'm like, okay.
I just stole all my brother's shit.
Right.
And if you hear somebody breaking into your house, it's Bob coming for your figures.
Bob got for my shit. I know.
I'm coming for all your shit, yo.
I got so much shit.
My mom would buy me anything I wanted because before me, she had 4 girls.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the baby of 13. I have 8 sisters and 4 brothers, but
Me too.
they're all fucking older than me. My sisters, I grew up with 4 of my sisters that my mother had right before me. By the time I was born, all my other brothers and sisters were out of the house.
Yeah.
So I didn't get any hand-me-downs. Everything I got was fresh. You know what I'm saying? And she wasn't buying me girls' toys.
I'm surprised you didn't have somebody else out there getting like 12 kids. I would say, here's my credit card. Go out and buy it yourself. I can't move anymore. Jesus Christ. Well, where do you fall in your family tree? Where are you? Are you baby or what?
Oh no.
No?
So I have an older brother that I used to terrorize because I ran shit in my house. So there was me and my brother for the longest time. And then 10 years after me was my little sister. And then I had a little brother. So I'm kind of in the middle, but I've always been very headstrong and opinionative. And so I got my way by force sometimes, but yes, I could get things that I wanted. And most of the time I wanted stuff that my brother had and I would just steal his shit.
Yeah.
And he would get mad and we would fight, but I'd be like, yeah, G.I. Joe wants to stay in my room now.
You know what?
Like, He-Man wants to hang out with me. And so, we would fight over that stuff. And then, like, I had, the random ass Barbie that I couldn't get rid of. And I'd be like, here, you can play with Barbie. Though I did like Jem. I had Jem.
Jem was cool.
And one time he tried to take Jem from me, and I was like, we're gonna knuckle up, like, seriously. Jem and G.I. Joe are like, they've got a thing going on. So
well, the cool thing about it was that whole series in Humanoids, G.I. Joe, Jem all had the same Geraldo Rivera news reporter in all 3 cartoons.
yeah, for real.
What was his name?
Actually, the characters of Jem were created based on an episode of G.I. Joe where Zartan and the Dreadnoks dressed up as a metal band. And
oh my God.
And wasn't that the same?
Line right now.
Yeah. And wasn't in that?
I know what you're talking about.
And isn't in that episode where Snake Eyes and Shipwreck?
Cold Slither was their name. Yep.
Right. Cold Slither.
No, isn't that the same episode where like Shipwreck and Snake Eyes and the parrot and the dog dress up like Culture Club?
That was a whole different episode.
That was a different episode, right?
No,
yeah.
That was the Battle for the Weather Dominator. That was when they first met.
Yes.
See, I was making connections and I didn't even know that I was on the right track.
But Jem was cool. Like I
loved her.
I sat my nephew down and I said, listen, because I bought Jem for my wife, right? And I sat him down. I said, listen, dude, remember G.I. Joe? He's like, yeah, G.I. Joe. I said, this is from the makers of G.I. Joe, dude. You're going to love it. I didn't let him see the cover. I just said, it's Jem, dude. You're going to love this. And I put that shit in. And he's like, and then he looks at me. And then he looks back at the TV. And he looks at me and he goes, what the fuck are we watching? Like this? I said, no, this is the shit, dude. You don't understand. I said, she's truly outrageous. I said, no, watch. They're all fighting over this fucking guy, Rio, who was a fucking problem with his purple hair.
Why?
He was so
why?
He was very douchey. But but he wasn't as douchey as Bo on She-Ra with his heart.
For real.
That heart emblem. Like I love how they get an all-girl planet. Literally, all the guys are bad guys, and they give him the one gay dude on the planet. He's the one gay dude on the entire planet.
with the
hang up
Tom
again.
Selleck porn stash.
Yes, he did. Yes,
Yes.
yes, he did.
His mustache was like this. It was like, hey, where is she?
My husband was.
I was
rocking
waiting
that
for
mustache
Higgins.
up until a couple of days ago, and
Yeah, he was, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
hmm
Oh, that was a look for him. that
I can't deal with the mustache. He
No.
always tells me, "What should I do with my face?" And I'm like, "Get rid of this."
Did he have
buddy."
My girlfriend loves it when I don't shave my face. She thinks I look great, all fucking Grizzly Adams up, and I can't stand
I
it.
like Scruffy, but his mustache, like, I just can't do it.
He had the
Now,
real
my wife's the same way.
My dad had the straight up fucking porn stash. Like, I mean, like covered his top lip, and fucking like crazy. And
This guy right here.
When I wear it,
This
I
guy
look just like him. I can't do it.
Yeah,
My dad's a police officer, and so he had the Magnum PI for the
Yes.
longest time. And one time he shaved his face, and we were like, "What is wrong with you? Who are you? Grow that shit back, because no one can handle your face." It's such a big difference. Yes. And since then, my dad has never again shaved off his mustache, because we were like, "No, Dad, go away."
That's so funny. I'm like Magnet Joe. You know Magnet Joe, where you get the metal filings and you just start changing.
Oh
it?
yeah.
That's why I change my hair, my facial hair, like every 3 weeks. It's something different. But you know, it's like when I shave, I look like my mom, and that's what my wife says. Like, as soon as you shave, you look just like your mom.
Did your mom have a beard?
Yeah, very nice, you know. But the cool thing is, and I am looking forward to this Netflix series with He-Man. That's a definite above even the movie. The movie is supposedly still moving forward. I don't have as much information about the movie as much. There was what was the name of that short movie that you can find on YouTube? It was like the Legend of Grayskull or something like that, or something.
There was actually 2. There was one called Legend of Grayskull, and then there was one called Ghost of Grayskull.
Yes, and you can find these on YouTube. I mean, you can watch them.
Hold up. Which one had Hero in it?
That was the Legend of Grayskull.
Legend of Grayskull,
Okay.
yeah. Because Hero was
They
on
just
Lord
came out with
Grayskull, right?
figures, and they have a Hero figure that's out right now with the As Seen on TV line,
Yeah.
and it is a fucking balls ass tits figure. I want this figure, and I can't find it anywhere.
You can't get it online? Nobody has it?
I can get it online, but eBay wants to charge you friggin' an arm and a leg.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to find it in the store.
Right, well, yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can make a few phone calls and find you one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can make a phone call too. I've got some people.
There you go, see?
Between me and LeGrand, we'll get it for you.
and two, I was funny because
I just wanted to show you guys this.
What is it?
Oh, dude.
Oh,
yeah,
there
it
you go. Now I can see it.
there we are.
What's
Now,
the other
see,
sword?
here you go.
Oh, it's the fire. It's the
Yeah.
Eye of Thunder. Okay. Yeah.
Now, see, it's funny because it was just about a week ago, maybe a week and a half. I sent Dan a picture. I was out at the store. Now, of course, obviously, Mattel made all the toys, and they are. I'm gonna switch this up here so I can bring it up. It's not the best picture, but now for Hot Wheels, they're doing one of their retro entertainment packs right now, and included in that, you have a Wind Raider.
Yep.
Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger here. See if I can enlarge this a little bit. Let me see.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And we also have the Thundercats Thunder Tank.
Yeah, man,
there.
I just saw that.
And they are sweet. I mean, they are the full metal bodies. So many times when you see Hot Wheels doing this stuff, they do these plastic bodies on them. These are more your collector grade. These are the ones you're going to pay probably like $4 or $5 for in the store, and it's an all metal body. Nice. I just recently picked up. You'll see in that picture too is the Ghost Rider Charger from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then also you got your James Bond, your Lotus, and the Super Pursuit mode of Kit. But I have those 3. I was able to pick all those up. And when I tell you, again, see, these are the collector edition type. So I mean, literally, you do not want to get hit with one of those. These are ones that are staying either in the package. If they ever come out of the package, they go in a display case. That Ghost Rider Charger, I put that in my wife's hand, and she's like, "Dear Lord." I haven't weighed them yet. But it's like,
they're all fucking metal, every inch of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah,
except the wheel.
Exactly. And the Ghost Rider one, all the flame stuff, that is plastic that's been attached to it. That's your translucent blue, all the flames on it. And the wheels are the real riders. They're the actual rubber tires on it instead of a plastic wheel. Nice. And it's in blue rubber. And it's just awesome. Absolutely awesome. But yeah, it's like one of those, let's say it was a week and a half ago. I was at the store and I saw the Wind Raider and I took a picture. I was like, "Yo, Dan, check this out." He's like, "That a little mini Wind Raider?" I was like, "Yeah." So
the cool thing about
it's one of those things. They're never going to go away. They're so iconic. They're always going to keep coming back.
The cool thing about retro toys is, especially when the 2002 remake of He-Man, when that toy line came out, and those toys, how about it, Bob? They're so articulate, and they came out at a time where now you have joints in your midsection, and the detail.
The wrist move.
Yeah, I mean
they actually have muscles that bend now, like they're double jointed muscles, and when you move, the muscle pops up.
Yeah, I mean, there's such incredible figures, but then they came out with a retro line. They reproduced.
The retro line is crazy good
of Masters of the Universe, and I told Bob
they're made by Madden Collector. They come in little white mail-away boxes. They're really sharp, and they go
the same cards. They're the same cards. They're the same cards. It's the same figure. Like, in other words, it's the same mold. It's not a remolding of it or anything like that. This is the He-Man you got back in 1983, 1981. This is the same figure, which was like, I was like, this is so cool that they were able to do this. So if you wanted to collect them, because everybody who got He-Man originally, they took it out of the package. So this was your way to get a collector's edition of those He-Man figures, which was phenomenal. And you can find them. They're out there. You're not going to get the whole line, obviously, but you'll probably get Skeletor. You'll get He-Man, and you'll probably get Battle Cat, maybe Stratos, maybe. That type of thing.
Well,
you're not going to get crazy.
Continued with that line, and there's about 70 figures out for it.
Yes, including
that line. They went in and made figures for it, like Plundar. They never made the Evil Rabbit Warlord. They made a lot of different figures for that line. It was pretty cool.
And you can get them, and that's the cool thing about it. So if you're a collector, by all means, He-Man stuff is the shit to go with. It's so cool. It's so cool. Unfortunately,
now, see, the one thing that we didn't touch on was how once upon a time, a gentleman by the name of Paul was supposed to be He-Man, and the deal fell through. So he went on TV as the King of Kings in full He-Man garb, as to try to get the groundswell of he needs to be He-Man.
Right.
By Paul, I mean Triple H.
Right. I was gonna say, who the fuck is Paul? Who's this Paul guy you're talking about? He would have been great. He would have been great.
Trying to be He-Man in that, because I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the gear he wore at WrestleMania
when he had the crown.
Yes.
I always thought that was a little more Skeletor inspired, but
nope. He was trying to do.
I thought that was Conan inspired, if anything else, because that looks just like the end of Conan the Barbarian when he's sitting upon the throne by himself. That's what it looks like.
When he added the cape and everything, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a copyright thing, because he had the Iron Cross chest piece, and he had everything He-Man related, but they were like, "You're going to go a little bit too far. They would have to deal with legal." So throw on the crown and throw on the big furry cape and all that kind of stuff.
Because don't forget, the Iron Cross is his symbol as well.
Yeah.
Which also He-Man's symbol was an Iron Cross. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I want an actor, though. I want someone that knows how to fucking talk. That's the thing. Not that he couldn't act, but I don't think he's not The Rock. He's not Dwayne Johnson. Not that he's Shakespeare either. I mean, but I can watch him above other people.
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me you saw him in Blade and didn't think of him as a great actor?
Oh, my God.
What do you know about me?
Oh, my God. Give that man Best Supporting Actor in a movie where poor Blade, he looked like he ate too many people. The funny thing about Blade is I was watching a bootleg copy, and Blade's talking to people, and I see this shadowy figure. I said, "Oh shit, that guy's gonna get Blade." It turns out it was some guy with an afro that was in the movie theater was trying to sit down.
Oh jeez.
Oh, man.
I
You're
said,
the worst.
woo, like this. But guys, I'm gonna tell you something. He-Man, it's coming out. We got a movie coming out eventually. It is going forward. I think they said something like the projected date. Now, obviously, with everything going on now in today's world, that can be all scrapped or whatever. But there was like a 2021 or 2022 release date that was projected for a He-Man movie. So they are planning on it. Where they're at in that part, I have no idea. The Netflix series is definitely coming out with Mark Hamill playing the iconic Skeletor, which I don't care who else they cast. I'll just watch it for him alone.
Pretty much.
Facts. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, let him do it by himself, like a one-man show. I don't give a shit.
for sure. He could pull it off.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he could. Yeah, he could.
I think he could be
He could
He-Man.
do every character.
He could.
Just make it every character, Mark Hamill.
Seriously. And you know what? That would bring it back to our childhood where they only were able to buy three actors to play everybody in the show anyway. So
It also make the job for the titling guys real easy. Starring Mark Hamill.
written by Mark Hamill, produced by Mark
Yeah,
Hamill.
just put etc.
And what you
Mark
do,
Hamill.
you throw in Frank Welker as like the voice of Gringer or something like that for the hell of it. Who the fuck cares, you know? Because he gets work. I'll take any work. I can get him on this show if I wanted to. It's like, you know.
Get Frank Welker. He's awesome, dude.
I was lying. If I could get Frank Welker, I would. I can't get Frank Welker.
You should try.
By police mandate, I cannot call again. No, it's no, it's one of those things. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, we got
Actually, I think I'm doing a Comic Con with Frank Welker in September. I might be able to get Frank Welker.
Then you need to get Frank Welker. This is our show, people. I just run it.
Do it.
Before we wrap this up, I want to ask everybody: favorite He-Man hero, favorite He-Man villain.
Okay. I'll start with you. You're the newest one on this panel.
Favorite He-Man hero. Man, I love me some Battle Cat. Like, just everything about Battle Cat. And villain Evelyn, man, all day long, Evelyn. She was the one that was really running shit. I'll just tell you right now.
She was the woman behind the man. She was the woman behind the man.
I don't always like the good guy. Like I told y'all already, like I'm always on the bad guy's side. That's why I love when my husband's a heel, because he's so good at it. Like I always love the heel, man. That's just
But he's
my
not
business.
Spanish. But he's not Spanish enough. So we'll talk about that another day.
No, I give him that spice.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
You're more
that's
Spanish.
all me right there.
Matt, what about you, bud?
Well, I mean, other than just saying He-Man, which would be the obvious choice, I have to say, other than He-Man, Man-at-Arms was my favorite hero.
Yes.
And as far as my favorite villain, I would have to say Beastman.
Okay.
If I had to say Beastman, especially the CKY version of Beastman.
Yeah.
We're not going there.
No, I can't play that on here.
No, we can't. No.
I think we all know what we're talking about.
That definitely goes beyond the line. We'll cross the line, but we
if you're looking for He-Man stuff, if you're looking for He-Man stuff, look for that as well. I'm just gonna say you might as well just complete the trifecta when you're watching stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
LeGrand, what about
Skeletor
you?
versus Beastman.
Yes.
I say my favorite villain, and this is just from the toy because of the toy line, was Stinkor.
Okay.
Because he was the skunk who was injected molded plastic that smelled like pine salt.
They actually injected the plastic with patchouli oil to make it smell like that. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now,
So I hate hippies now.
what about your hero?
What about hero?
And as for heroes, I'm going out on a limb. Ram Man.
Really, I thought you were going to say Clamp Champ.
Clam Champ.
Or Fisto, right?
Fisto. It was great. Fisto was great. I gotta say, I would say like, because you know what, I revert back to the toys more than I revert to the cartoons. But I think as far as a villain was concerned, I always liked Trapjaw. I thought he was like a really cool character. And in the 2002 rendition, when you see his origins and stuff like that, I think that was it's just really neat how he comes about. And then for a hero, toy wise, I liked Rio Blast. Going back to what I said before, I just thought he was just such a cool looking figure. Also, Cyclone was another one that I was into.
For sure, you're going to say Mech and Neck.
Mech and Neck. Or what was that? But you know what? One of my favorites was Manny Faces.
That's my favorite.
Manny Faces.
Yeah.
Manny Faces is my favorite. Well, actually, he was my favorite hero because you had 3 toys in one. You just spun the head and it was a different character.
Yeah.
You know? So, and my favorite villain has to be. I had 2. I had Triclops. I really liked Triclops.
Yeah. Okay.
And I loved Faker.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, man, I forgot about Faker.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't think they explored Faker as much as they could have, unfortunately.
No.
Because in the original, he was a robot.
Right.
And then in the 2002, wasn't he like kind of like a clone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that, which I thought was more fitting because he was able to be sentient, a sentient being, that type of thing. But no, I mean, what a great show. Guys, I want to thank everybody for coming on. Let's welcome Lily on here. We've been trying to get her on for like 12 years, and now she's on.
I know. I can't help it. My schedule's ridiculous.
It is.
Between my schedule and my husband's schedule, it's rough.
Yes.
But I've been dying to come on here, so I'm finally glad that I made it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You know how hard it is to find a nice-looking nerd? It's very hard. It really is.
Yeah, we're very few and far between.
It's very few. And in all honesty, I said, I need somebody nice looking on the show. And I said, but she has to know what the hell she's talking about. And the other one I can't get. So I said, well, let me see. Who else do I have here? I said, oh my God, look at Lily.
That's him saying you were his second choice, Lily.
Well, you know what? No, because the other one I know pretty well.
I'm processing that.
I think Sean's going to come kick your ass.
I know,
right?
He's not going to, but he don't like Philadelphia. He doesn't like Philly.
I'm kind of pissed off that he said we're all
But
over.
I do.
Is he like, yeah? You know what? It's funny because
he doesn't like it, but he'll go if I bring him there.
I said to them, when my birthday comes around, I want you guys to come up. And Lily was the first one who said, you call us, I'll come up. And Sean's like, okay, brother. Yeah, okay. It's like, he mumbled right off. He's like,
Philadelphia.
You know what I mean? So, but Lily, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we'll have you on again, obviously, because I want you a part of this crew. Special thanks to Matt, to LeGrand, to Bobby T. Now, just to give us an idea, we got Lily, who's going to be here on Capes Not Included. LeGrand's on with me at That Way Cool Wrestling Show, as well as right here on Capes Not Included. Matt here on DJs After Dark. He's on Have You Seen It Lately? So he's a very busy man. And, of course, we got Bobby T, who's right here on Capes Not Included, as well as New Comic Book Wednesdays.
What?
Which is going to be coming back very, very soon. As soon as we have all these restrictions up, New Comic Book Wednesdays will be back on the network as well. So for all these guys and gals, my name is Danny J. Hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button, share the channel, share the show. And until next time, keep your nose to the wind and your eyes to the stars. Have a great day, everybody.
And wash your fucking hands.
Wash your fucking hands. Wash your fucking hands, you filthy animal.
You dirty bitches.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.